All right, another sort of interesting thing is I'm going to show you about gradients. Two interesting things. One is we've only looked at linear gradients, but you can actually do circular radial gradients, which is sort of interesting. And you can actually also build transparencies right into the gradient, which sometimes is useful. And so just to sort of hit on the points of how you can do appearances as well and how complicated they can get. I'm going to continue to work with grass. And what I'm going to do is I've got this nice fade here and I got this nice fade here and I got this nice textured, but still it's still very all sort of monochromatic green. And so I'm going to use a radial gradient to get a subtle shift of change of hue across it, which is often a nice little detail. So first thing I'm going to do is, because I'm working with a complex geometry already, is I'm going to come to my appearances. I'm going to eyeball off angled strokes. We looked at a little this before. This will sort of quicken the time that this goes through here, right? And I'm going to turn off grain too, just temporarily. When I'm done with doing the gradient stuff, I'll turn it back on. But this might help see the gradient as well as what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I could do it in multiple different ways. I don't necessarily need to make a new fill to do this, but I'm going to anyway, just to sort of reiterate making new fills in the appearances. So I'm going to make a new fill, and I'm going to change this to a gradient. So the step one of gradients over here, I got to change it to a gradient. And like a lot of times it defaults to a black and white gradient. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make my gradient the same color on both sides. I'm going to have to use yellow, so I'm just going to pull standard yellow straight in and pull black away. Move this over to the side. I'm going to pull that same yellow straight down in on this side, pull the white away. Pull the white away, there we go. And slide this over to this side. And of course it's gradient yellow yellow, so it doesn't look like much of a gradient. On screen I can see the inner glow of the green that I have applied on the appearances above it. But other than that, it's just a solid yellow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select one side, doesn't really matter. I'm going to select this side, and you can see there's opacity right here. And I'm going to set this opacity all the way to 0. And so we can actually see now it's going from yellow on this side to completely non-yellow, which is, so we're seeing the green that's below it in the appearances, all the way on this side, which is a nice trick. And so if you want it to fade from color to color, that's how you do it. You have the same color here, and one gets to 0 transparency, right? Because sometimes students think they want to change this to green, but it's hard to match and doesn't work. Or they think they want to change it to white, but that's not going to work either. You want the same color set on each side. And that works. That's a sort of subtle shift. What I'm going to do is I want this to be radial, to sort of kind of spread out and be more interesting. So right here is where I change that. I'm going to change this from linear to radial. And we'll see what happens. It starts with a circle in the center. That's going to be my yellow point, and it's going out in each direction to nothingness. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my third gradient tool, which is over here, and change the orientation of that just like I could a line. I'm going to do it from about that corner and pull up to about this corner, so that it sort of glows yellow down here and fades to green up here, and I'm sort of getting this subtle tonal shift. Now right now it's still pretty strong, so I'm just going to make one more change. I'm going to come over to this guy, select him, and just change his opacity down to something like 50%. And so now it sort of takes on some of that hue of that green to match a little bit. It also makes it much more subtle. But what it is doing is just creating, like, again, a tonal change across the whole of this field, which is just a little bit of interest in making it, fairly, hopefully more interesting and nice looking. And so the last step I'll do here, just to finalize this, I got to come in, I'm going to turn back on the grain, and this will take a second to render. And then I'm going to turn back on the angled strokes, which is going to take a little bit more time to render here. But as this goes, I think at this point there's definitely Illustrator tools that I have probably not gone over. I definitely have not gone over all the effects in any case, and they all do different things, and it takes exploration to figure those things out. But I've given the base knowledge of using the appearances with a combination of effects to really be able to produce what I believe is you can replicate almost anything that you see out in the world, anything to be realistic, anything to look hand styling, and anything at all. So you can do anything and ask me for help. So what I'm going to do is I might follow this up with a couple videos on a couple things about the sky, since I haven't really focused on it, but won't necessarily include any new tools. Maybe one. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, so there we go. That's that. I've got this nice subtle texture. I've got nice subtle tonal changes around things. I'm highlighting the buildings. It's starting to look sort of interesting and nice. Granted, I could spend a lot more time on this, tweaking colors and doing all these things, but that's what I want you to do, of course. But I think I've given you the tools to really do anything. So good luck.